Look, we're all human and sometimes we do dumb things. All of us. But doing a dumb thing that causes you to stub your toe is not the same as repeated dumb things that cause your weight to get out of control while threatening your life with serious health risks. So, in this humbling video, I'm going to walk through the very dumb things I was doing for years that allowed my weight to spiral out of control and my health to decline. Maybe you'll relate. And then we're going to see how all of this is fixable and look at solutions. So, without further ado, here's my list of the 3 dumbest things that make us fat. Dumb thing number 1. Starving our bodies of fiber. If one simple sentence can explain the obesity epidemic, it's this. We've removed fiber from our diets and replaced it with sugar. In fact, the average American gets about 1/3 the recommended intake of fiber each day, while consuming about 3 times the recommended dose of sugar. But this isn't surprising because food manufacturers have done the same. They've removed much of the fiber from the foods they sell because it has a short shelf life, which means more waste and less profits. But while they profit, we suffer with obesity, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and much more. But why specifically is fiber so beneficial? Well, picture the last time you ate chocolate or potato chips or any other high-carb snack. You probably told yourself many times you'll have just 1 or 2 servings, while ending up hunched over with your head in your hands 10 minutes later. These fiberless foods are easy to chew and don't really make you feel full until hundreds of calories are consumed. Now, compare that to a stick of celery or even an almond. These foods take more effort and energy to chew, and this effort actually makes you want to stop before you've had too much. And this is a great thing for weight loss. And besides a feeling of fullness, dietary fiber may also help with the following. So, what are the best ways to add more fiber to your diet? Well, although this may be the boring answer, you can't beat additional servings of vegetables, fruits, and nuts. But increasing fiber intake does not have to be as boring as you think. When I had a health crisis recently, I increased my fiber intake dramatically by adding some of my favorite flavors to fruits and vegetables. So, I was eating things like tomatoes with Parmesan cheese and basil, celery with spicy hummus, and plain Greek yogurt with blueberries and strawberries. A million possibilities exist to increase your fiber intake pain-free. But you do need to be cautious. For example, many people think that 100% whole wheat bread is a pure source of fiber. But remember that fiber shortens shelf life, which loses money for food companies. So, a lot of fiber is stripped away and replaced with high fructose corn syrup, which not only offers nothing but empty calories, but was shown to bring with it detectable levels of mercury in some foods in a test done as recently as 2009. Dumb thing number 2. Constant grazing. An interesting article appeared in the LA Times on September 24, 2015. It talked about a study done on 150 non-dieting people in San Diego. This group of busy, reasonably healthy adults were given a smartphone app on which they were to record the meals and snacks eaten each day for a period of 3 weeks. And what they found is that the traditional frequency of 3 meals a day is a thing of the past. The data revealed that participants ate a minimum of 4 and as many as 15 times a day. More specifically, the Times reported that the 10% with the lowest food intake ate 4.2 times per day, while the 10% with the highest intake ate 15.5 times. They also noted that the majority ate for stretches of 15 hours or longer each day, that 12% of calories were eaten after 9 p.m., and that less than 10% of participants went for more than 12 hours without eating. But why does this matter? Is a high meal frequency a bad thing, even if the meals are healthy? Well, yes, for weight loss anyway. The problem here is that fat burning in our bodies is a timing issue. Our body's preferred source of fuel is glucose, which is formed in the body when carbohydrates are eaten. When glucose is nearly used up, the body looks for its second fuel choice, which is fatty acid. This would also include triglycerides in fat cells when energy needs get high. The problem, as far as meal frequency is concerned, is that it takes time to burn through the glucose to get to the fat. A frequently reported number by researchers is 6 hours, but remember that this is only the starting point for fat burning. It takes closer to 12 hours to get into serious fat metabolism, which is about 5 hours longer than the average American sleeps at night. So researchers for the San Diego study did a follow-up, a sequel, as it were. They took 8 of the original 150 participants and simply changed the period during which they could eat during the day. In other words, they changed the feeding period down from 15.5 hours in a day to a maximum of 12. And while the participants were not asked to change their actual diets, they still lost an average of 7 pounds in the next 16 weeks. They also reported higher energy levels and increased sleep satisfaction. So how can you use this information? Do you find that you have your first meal at 7 or 8 in the morning and your last at 9 or 10 p.m.? Now, nobody's recommending skipping breakfast, but it should be noted that our calorie needs are usually met or exceeded by 7 p.m. So here's an easy challenge you can start today with less pounds and more energy to look forward to in the future. Dumb thing number 3. Obsess over low-fat this or that. Look, we were duped. It's not our fault. But with more and more evidence that dietary fat is not so bad in 2015, it's time to drop this paranoia. And it's time to take a good, hard look at what food companies have done to us in the last 30 years because it's killing us. Now, I'm not going to get into detail about whether certain types of fats are good or bad, although a number of respected scientists are convinced that even saturated fat is not a silent killer. What's more important to know is that fats provide food with flavor, so when a food company removes fat from their foods and still wants to make money, they need to replace that lost flavor somehow. And in the last 30 years, that replacement has been sugar, and more commonly, high fructose corn syrup. But how could it happen that an entire nation, and many nations, got fooled on the dietary fat issue? Well, a government declaration helps, and the U.S. government did declare that fat was bad for us thanks to one particular study that has since been discredited. This report was called the 7-Country Study by an American researcher named Ancel Keys. Now, Mr. Keys meant well when he set out to prove his theory that dietary fats were responsible for heart disease and the weight issues that usually accompany it. But his research contains some serious flaws. First, Keys appeared to ignore certain aspects of his data. Keys used America, Canada, Australia, England, Wales, Italy, and Japan as his 7 countries. And he found the heart attack rates were the lowest in Japan and Italy, and the highest in America and Canada. The problem is that both Japan and Italy have rather high-fat diets. The Japanese consume a lot of fish, while the Italians also consume fish, as well as cheese, olives, and olive oil. But what they don't eat are foods high in trans fats, like donuts and a lot of other fried foods, and they don't eat much added sugar. In other words, processed foods. And if consumption of fats was really the problem for obesity and heart disease, it just doesn't make sense that the Japanese and Italians have obesity and heart attack rates far below those of Americans. This also applies to countries like Denmark, France, and the Netherlands, whose citizens also eat a high-fat diet and boast obesity and heart attack rates way below that of sugar-obsessed America. So we need to stop looking at low-fat declarations on food packages as some kind of shining indication of a healthy food. Low-fat foods have been on grocery shelves for 30 years with stupendous sales for many of them, yet in that time, obesity rates have more than doubled in adults and quadrupled in adolescents. Because the reality is that if it's boasting less fat, it's loaded with more sugar. And that's something we've been getting plenty of in the last 30 years. In fact, 2 to 300% more than is recommended. So, if you look back at these three dumb things we do, one thing they have in common is that they're not really that difficult to fix. If you know you only get about 10 grams of fiber per day, you can work towards doubling that. If you know that you tend to keep eating until 10 p.m. or later, you can cut back to 8 p.m. or earlier. And please, vow to change your shopping habits to give up the low-fat fantasy. We've all bought into it, but it's just not done us any good.